Started. And welcome everybody to the OAS Lunch and Learn series. And again, just a quick overview. We're discussing Unanet AE ERP. It's a very powerful system, like we've said in the past, with a lot of different functionality for everyone to utilize. So really our goal with this series is, as partners with Unanet and also as implementers and trainers and users of Unanet AE, we want to offer our insight to help others in the community that utilize Unanet AE as well. So in all of our presentations, we try to start with kind of the basics of a certain topic, and then we work our way from there up into more advanced features. And that varies based on the topic, obviously, but that's the goal. And after the presentation that we'll have in just a minute, we welcome questions so that we can give answers, and that can either be on the subject that we're talking about today or something else that you're struggling with or having a question about as well. And we also welcome feedback on what you're seeing here and any suggestions on topics. Some of you have submitted some suggestions, which we've made note of and put into our plans. But if you have any other suggestions, please feel free to send those to me. My email is right there on the screen, tcower@4oasllc.com. You can send those to me and I'll get them on the list as well. And lastly, if you know of anybody struggling with their current ERP system, whether that be Unanet or maybe they're using a different system or maybe they're using spreadsheets and things like that, please go ahead and refer them to us. We can definitely help them. We can get them on the right track with the proper ERP system and help them to be able to implement it and use it as well. So again, just wanted to put that out there. If you know of somebody struggling as well, then let them know that we can help. That would be much appreciated. Again, what we offer is from the get-go software sales for ERP, CRM as well, that adds on to Unanet. It's the Unanet CRM from Cosential, and then also other add-ons as well, AP and AR add-ons and things that make the system work specific for your needs. Also, we do implementation and planning as well as training on Unanet AE. We can do custom invoice designs, custom reports, and other custom programming. We offered continued support and training for Unanet. And then we also offer outsourced accounting services. So you find yourself in a pinch and need some help with some bookkeeping and accounting, we can help with that as well. Just reach out to us. All right, that was enough for an introduction on OAS. This week we have our topic, the year-end process. And we know that year-end is going on right now for a lot of you. So hopefully this is beneficial and helpful when working the year-end process with Unanet AE. So our presenter today is Tammy Kilhullen. She's one of the OAS senior ERP consultants, and she's going to talk to us and give us a presentation on the year-end process. Please, Tammy, take it away.
Thanks, Tim. And I'll share my screen here and we'll jump right into year-end process. And what I've put together is a checklist that Tim will be sharing with those of you on the call, and it'll also be available on the OAS website. So for those of you that kind of like to have a go by, I've put a little list together that I like to use to make sure I've accomplished all those things for the year-end process. And so one of the first things, and I highlighted this item down at the bottom, is to check to see what fiscal years are not yet closed in the Unanet system. So it kind of is one of those, it's kind of down in the lower section when you get ready to run year-end close. But for those of you that may not have run that in the past or know if you've closed, we're going to look at that item first when we hop over into Unanet. So one of those things that you kind of want to make sure that you have done is making sure all of that your fiscal year AP check runs have been issued and processed, and make sure that they're in that proper fiscal year that you're getting ready to close, as well as that you make sure that all of your current current year credit card transactions are posted. So you just want to make sure all of your kind of major items are processed before you even start that year-end close. making sure all of your labor distributions are posted in that correct fiscal year. And just as a footnote, labor distribution is a future topic coming up in one of our Lunch and Learn, so there'll be more information on that labor distribution postings. And then making sure all of your invoicing to your clients are posted in the fiscal year that you're closing out. Then those of you may or may not use overhead allocation or revenue generation. So I've added those to the list. If you don't do overhead allocation or run rev gen, then those two items can be skipped over. And then, of course, too, you may have journal entries that you do on a routine basis to record accruals, amortize your prepaid expenses, run fixed asset depreciation, or do a depreciation entry. And then you also may do maybe a manual work in process journal entry. So those are kind of all the basics that you're probably doing on a routine basis anyways in your month ends. But these are just ones to make sure you checked off and have made sure that they're done prior to closing your year end. So with that, I'm going to kind of start that year-end process, but that first step I'm going to do is make sure that I don't have any prior fiscal years not closed inside of Unanet. So if I hop into our Unanet database, and I'm going to head over to Utilities and Custom Reports. So this item you can add to your navigation panel, but it's not one of those things you're going to use on a routine basis. So you may just want to leave it over here in Custom Reports and find it in the list of options. So if I type fiscal to find fiscal year, there is this report that if I double click on it, it will load here in that right hand side, and I can just preview it right from here. So if I click preview report, it's going to default to accrual basis. So if I want to also check on cash basis, I could do that as well. And if you have org units, you can check them for the multiple levels of your org units, depending on if you're closing them by those org units. It will make you select at least one org unit to run this process. So I'm going to run this on the accrual basis first. And it's just going to give me a quick little grid telling me what years have not been closed. So in this database, both 2023 and 2024 are not closed. So I'm going to focus on closing 2023 during this presentation. So that's on the accrual basis. I can do that same preview and check the box for cash basis, stick with that same company ID. And this one, the cash basis has been closed for 23. So I only need to worry about 24 on the cash basis. So with that, now I have a comfort level of what I need to do to start my year-end process. So kind of going back to my, yes.
A couple people are putting in the chat that they're not seeing your screen. I am seeing your screen, but I don't know if they maybe came in late and you might have to stop sharing and reshare.
Oh, sure.
Try?
Yeah, definitely I'll try that. Let's try that again. Are you able to, so I'll just take a quick pause and make sure everybody can.
Is anybody still not seeing it, or is everybody seeing it now? They're saying all good.
Okay, perfect. So I just took care of this item I had highlighted in yellow, double checking what fiscal years I need to close. And I've walked through and made sure, you know, in my mindset with myself and my team, that all of my fiscal year entries have been recorded. So one of the first things I'm going to do is run my convert to cash action, especially if I need cash basis reports, as well as my accrual basis. So to do this, this is under the tools menu item in the chart of accounts. So I'm going to jump back over into Unanet. And with this, I'm going to go to general accounting, chart of accounts. And there it goes. Had a slight, it got all sorts of happy with my double click. So my chart of account applet has opened, and under tools, there is an item called convert to cash. And when I click on that, it does give us a pop-up that it could take a few minutes. and I'm just going to say yes. So that way I know my cash basis is up to date. For those of you maybe running this on a monthly basis, so it's part of your normal protocol. So from that, I'll go back to my checklist and I can check that off that I've done. And now I want to make sure that I've done all my bank reconciliation and credit card reconciliations. And inside of the system, of course, your bank reconciliations are also under general accounting. So if you've been doing them in here, you know where to go and how to do all that. I'm going to come back and revisit this after I run my report, but I would want to make sure all of my bank recs are complete for the fiscal year. And then for those credit card reconciliations, if you're using the credit card process in the system, under accounts payable, there is a credit card reconciliation. And with this, and if I can get the little, I can pick my credit card vendor, which I know was second from the top, and I can make sure all of my credit card items are reconciled as well. So for those of you that do have credit cards in the system, you can use that credit card reconciliation process. Going back to that checklist, now I'm going to want to start running those pre-close financial statement reports. And so I've put a list of some of the main financial statements as well as some project reports. So I want to make sure that I run my balance sheet, profit and loss or income statement, my trial balance, and any of those subledger reports and make sure that they tie back. And you can do that one of two ways. You can use Unanet's balance sheet, income statement, trial balance report from their menu, or if you've had specific financial statements designed under financial statement, we can run those here as well. So if you have a balance sheet and income statement in Financial Statement Designer that does those groupings, then you would want to run those as well. So if I come to balance sheet, and of course I'm focused on 2023, I'm going to run my balance sheet both on the accrual and cash basis if I run both sets of books. So if I click print, I have my December 2023. Again, you could be closing a June 30th or a September 30th, so whatever your fiscal year end is. And so I'm going to want to keep a quick snapshot of this as I want to start validating against those subledgers. And one of the things with my balance sheet is, of course, I want to make sure my current year profit and loss matches that income statement or P&L statement. So if I also run the income statement for December, I want to make sure I stay in that same basis. So I'm running accrual right now. I want to make sure that my year-to-date profit and loss matches what's on the balance sheet. And then also running that trial balance report. So I'm just using those standard Unanet ones here on the left. And this one here, of course, I do want to make sure I'm running for that same time period. So I'm running it for the full year and accrual basis. And I can click print. And then one of those things on this is I like to make sure that at the very end of my trial balance, if I go to the very last page, that my ending balance ties to 0. So if this ending balance is off, then there's something out of balance, and you may need to do some research to find where that out of balance is coming from. Also, your beginning balance should start with 0, meaning you've closed that prior year. Okay. So with that, then I can run my subledger report. So I'm going to start with accounts payable because that's first on my list, and I'm going to run an AP report. And I'm just going to go ahead and use that AP aged, making sure I run it for the fiscal year. I'm including all my AP accounts. And I'm going to come to the bottom of this report and validate that all of my accounts payable accounts tie to this subledger, so, or vice versa. So I've got 81,317.35. If I come to my balance sheet, I can validate here. So I do have 2 accounts for accounts payable that tie to that 81,317.35. And I can also, of course, do that on my trial balance. So again, you can use a combination but these two reports should be identical. So whichever one you prefer looking at, I would use either one. I'm going to do that same thing for my employee expenses. Hopefully, maybe you've paid them all out, but you could potentially have some at year end that are going to carry over and you'll pay them out in January. So again, I'm just going to validate that that $1,068 is sitting out on my balance sheet. Employees expense payable. I've checked that box. I can now say that that ties out. And then lastly, I'm going to do the same thing for my accounts receivable. Going to make sure I'm in that right accounting period. I'm going to do all my AR accounts at one time. And if you, before I hit that print button, if you have retainers or collect retainers, you can include the retainer balance and make sure that that ties to your retainage account or retainage if you're doing retainage. So this database just uses retainers. So if I go to the very last page, my retainer balance is sitting here, but my overall just aged AR is on this side. So if I go back to my balance sheet, I have accounts receivable of that 460, 530, 470, and I have that $1 million and $1,100,000 of retainers on account. So again, those two items tie out. So I feel very confident that all my subledgers tie out to my financial statements so I can move forward. If any of them did not, you would want to dig in and find, is there a journal entry posted to one of the subledger type accounts that should not have been, and validate what why you have that outage and what you might need to do to correct that. So going back to that checklist, I've done all of my basic financial reports. You may want to run your project-based reports for your PMs to keep that snapshot of your projects. And I have a little asterisk on that one. Each organization may use different project reports routinely. So it's going to be those favorite reports that you all keep for project-based reports, whether it is like a project scorecard or a profit and loss or project history, whatever reports you like to maintain on your project reports, those would be those ones that you would want to keep as of year end. And then many of your outside accounting firms are going to ask for reconciliation for your balance sheet accounts. So you're going to come back through, and for any of those that you don't have subledger for or bank reconciliations for, you may want to create a reconciliation type account to account for what makes up the total on your balance sheet. So work in process may be a system report or it may be an outside report, depending on how you capture work in process. Same thing for prepaid expenses, what makes up that balance of that $32,000 here at the end of the year. And then as well as maybe on your liability side, your line of credit. And if you have any of these withholdings that aren't yet paid, your outside accounting firm may ask for when they clear. So having those reconciliations done and ready will help you in that process. Okay. Going back to that checklist, again, if I hadn't run that fiscal year not close, I would want to run that now before I get ready to run that close. But since I did that at the beginning step, that box is checked off. And now I'm confident in all of my reconciliations, I can go ahead and run that year-end closing process inside of Unanet to close my fiscal year. Know that you can do this multiple times. So if you get post-closing entries, you can run it a second time after you post those from your outside firm. So I'm going to hop back into Unanet, and under utilities, I'm going to find my end of year closing. And it's going to ask me in that dialog box, what year do I want to close? Well, I want to close 2023. and it's going to ask me what retained earning accounts do I want to post this to. So I'm going to pick that primary one. If I've run this in the past, it is going to remember which one I had selected. And of course, I'm focused right now on that accrual basis. And if I have an org unit that I want to close specifically, I can select it at this time. If I don't select any here, it's going to close them all together. And all I need to do is click close year. And it does give me that nice warning that it's going to take several minutes. And I do have to run. Well, this one does want it to have a org selected. Okay. And that's now complete. So it doesn't give me a confirmation. It just runs it into this, runs it through the system. To validate that entry, I'm going to come to general accounting, and I'm going to go to my general journal and use that F3 shortcut key to see those last transactions. And if I make this wider here, you'll see that this one says automated end of year posting. And so if I click on that, and it'll take, it's kind of simple in this org. It's going to show me the revenue and expenses closing out. There must be two here. Or it only did the one company. I'm going to have to do it for all of them. But it's going to show me all of the revenue and expenses closing out to that retained earnings. So again, I may need to run this. Oops, I clicked that wrong item. Sorry. I thought I still had that open. So I am going to have to come back through, and I'm going to have to run it for all of the org units based on this database. Yours may not have that scenario. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that those are all closed throughout the system. And then I will have those multiple journal entries in the general journal. Okay. So I would need to do all of those. Once I have all of those year-end closing entries complete, going back to my little checklist, I want to run then I want to review those general journal entries like we just did, but then I want to run those post-closing balance sheet, income statement, and trial balance. Just make sure everything closed out appropriately. So again, if I came back over to my balance sheet, if I run this one on the accrual basis, I shouldn't have any current year. I have that one company I still need to close, but it's closed some of them to retained earnings. And if I run that income statement, again, I still have, I think, company number 3 to close. So I'll want to make sure I have all those done. And I want to make sure then when I run the income statement, so if I ran this for 2022, that my P&L statement's 0. So there shouldn't be anything out here remaining in my P&L statement. And then of course my trial balance, when I do that, I will have my ending balances in my revenue and expense accounts will be 0. Okay. So once I have that all done, those reports are hard to replicate and generate again with those closing entries. So the standard reports outside of Unanet, I am going to touch base on if you create your own financial statements, so under utility and financial statement designer, each of your reports have the ability to include closed entries or not to. So if you have a standard one, so if we have the balance sheet and the box is checked, so this would be a post-close, so all of those closing entries would be included. I would want to come back in over here, and if I wanted to, I could uncheck the box so I could get a pre-close report, so not including my closing entries. So there is a way to still run a 2023 financial statements later on and not include those closing entries. And it looked like there was a question about cash basis accounting. That yes, all the cash basis accounting reports are set up in the system because they are just a toggle switch when you run which basis you want to run it for. The thing you would want to make sure is to run that convert to cash through your chart of account area. So that way your cash type cash basis is trued up. Great question. And then coming down into, I put a couple items under miscellaneous just because they're not part of your true year-end close, but kind of a little side notes of your year end. You want to make sure that that next fiscal year in your accounting periods is open. You're probably going to run that before you get to your year end close process. And for those of you, I'll go ahead and we'll take a look at that. So under general accounting and accounting periods, once this loads up here, if I come up to periods, I can create that new fiscal year. And when I do that, it's going to create 2026 in this database at the moment. So I would just click yes, and it would automatically create my next fiscal year. And then I could open that January month or whatever month is your first accounting month of your fiscal year. Okay. Also, you would want to make sure that your benefit accruals that if you're keeping track of them inside of Unanet, that you would open up your new benefit year. So that way everything resets and all those new accruals start. So for those of you that are running accruals on a routine basis, this is probably second nature. So under human resources and your benefit accruals, I always like to open up one of my accrual projects. When I go to do run accruals, I'm going to make sure I start with my 1/1/2025 to start that next fiscal year. So that way my benefit year will change from being 1/1/24 on this project over to 25. And if I have any carryovers, limitations, then those will take into account. So not a true year end on the accounting side, but one of those year end processes that you need to make sure is processed. And then of course, everyone needs to issue those 1099s here in the US. And so again, maybe not a year end process for those that don't close in December. So that's why I made that footnote that they were a miscellaneous item. And then you may have some post-closing entries. So these are any items that you may get from your tax returns, outside adjustments from your CPA firm. So you can go ahead and record those items when you receive them, and then you can just rerun that year-end closing utility to close those journal entries so that P&L would have a balance back into retained earnings. And then of course to maintain a copy of those post-closing financial reports. Okay, I saw another question pop up. And I think this goes back to that cash basis reporting. Do we need to run it monthly or yearly? Again, it's going to depend on if you run cash basis reports on a monthly basis and maintain them, then you would want to run that monthly. If you are only capturing at year end, I would still suggest kind of running it on a routine basis just so it doesn't take too long to process and slow your system down when you're running that and having to wait on that. So I would just get in the habit of running convert to cash on a regular basis. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I was going to say, if there was any other questions, feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Tim.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
Yeah, if there's any other questions, we can answer those. And again, they can either be on this subject or another subject that you're struggling with. So the checklist that Tammy showed you, I'm going to email with the recording of the session today. If that's it, Annette, if that's you're referring to, that you'll get that when I send that either later on today or in tomorrow morning or so. One more question, Tammy, in regards to the same other two questions. It says no need to have any custom setup for cash basis.
No, just it's already in the system. So cash basis is already there. It's just making sure that that convert to cash so everything's trued up on the general ledger side. And then you may want to have some custom reports if you're using the financial statement designer that are cash basis. That would be the only customization I could think of.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Chintan? If not, you can let us know. Another question, Tammy, is can you explain more about the overhead allocation and revenue generation?
Sure. So overhead allocation is there's a step inside of Unanet that can be set up to determine what your overhead is to be allocated to your projects. Some firms choose to use this and they run it on a monthly basis. Other firms choose to use just that job cost rate schedule where they kind of know what their multiplier is. They set it and maybe review that just annually instead. And so that's the little, you know, no one has to kind of think about running that process. It's just QC'd and then possibly updated. So that overhead allocation script, you would want to work through and figure out how you calculate your overhead for your projects if you're going to use that method. And then revenue generation, that is a work in process component where any of your unbilled charges at the end of the month, you would run this revenue generation process and it would post that work in process to your general ledger. And there is some customizations that would go along with revenue generation. So that one does take a little effort to set up and use.
So would the revenue generation, is that to post time that hasn't been submitted or approved yet?
No, the time would be already submitted. It would at month end, some firms choose to run revenue generation, so it posts a starting point for their revenue, and then as they bill, it reduces that, so that way they're not waiting to close a month till they get all their billing done. They have that revenue kind of pre-posted.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Amy, for the
Mhm.
question. Another question is, if our company has never converted to cash or closed the fiscal years on the calendar basis ever, should it be done, or is it better to let it go since it would be 2022, 23, and 24? And actually, she meant cash basis.
Sure.
Sorry.
So the my past history, we never closed our cash basis because we always ran an accrual. We only converted to cash for tax purposes. So the firm that I worked with, we never closed our cash basis. But if if you want to go back and close those could be done.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions in this regard or something else? Is there a way to view a report or list of rate schedules and which projects they are used in? Is another question.
So one of the quickest ways to find what projects are using rate schedules is using the navigator panel. Let me share my screen again real quick. So when you're in, hopefully everyone can see my screen. So when you're in projects, if you use this navigator tool, once I get projects loaded, there is an option to view by, should be rate schedule here. And so I can see all of the projects that are using that what rate schedule. So that's one way you could see what projects are using what rate schedules.
Does that answer your question, Rosalind? Great.
So, and just because you asked about a report as well, that grid that Tammy just showed can be exported using Control-Shift-E if it's helpful to get that out into Excel to understand it better.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Have questions? If there are any more, just let us know. But just so you know, the year-end process can be different for different firms, the way they process things, the way they handle things, the way they look at data. So we can cover it like we did today, kind of on a generic basis. But if you need any assistance as far as specific to your firm's way of looking at things or doing things, we can help you to understand how to implement those into Unanet based on your specific needs. And we can also help create reports, various statements or other outputs that will help you to run your year end. And then if need be, if you need the help, we can also help you complete your year end completely. So just some options that OAS can help as far as year end goes. And we're here to help in any way that we can if you need that. Another question, Tammy, is for unit billing, I want to bill direct revenue and labor.
So unit billing is geared towards expenses. So when you, so I think we would need to look at some more specifics. That's kind of a hard one to kind of answer in a, but most cases unit billing is created. So when you use the unit billing function inside of Unanet, that's going to gear towards posting an expense, whether it's a purchase journal or an employee reimbursable.
And secondary to that is which will offset the direct expense?
So again, so that would be the ODC. So the reimbursable revenue account would offset direct expense. So those two, the type, I'm trying to get the right word. Sorry, changing gears from
Yeah, that's okay.
let me find my chart of account.
It's a little bit difficult to put it in words, the whole question. So I think let me just speak it out. So basically, we have direct, we build direct revenue. So if we have a subconsultant, we add a profit on it and then bill it to the client. And when we are billing it, it just goes as under the revenue tab at this point, like under the revenue account. So we have some difficulty in separating out because right now we cannot really identify what is the actual revenue, because if we have like a 10,000 revenue, we will have like 8,000 which will be for subconsultant. So we want to separate that out in unit billing. So is there a way to do that where we can separate out and show it on the financial statement in that manner where this $2,000 revenue, $8,000 consultant revenue, and then it's offsets the direct expense of 8,000 from the consultant which we pay. So at the end, it just shows that 2,000 is your net profit.
Can I jump in? And I'm going to jump in and ask a question. So are you billing on fixed fee, or are you billing hourly rates to the client?
Fixed fee.
Fixed fee?
Yes.
Okay. So I think you're talking about what we call in Unanet ICC costs. So you're billing. Yeah. Okay. So
we did that, but it doesn't work. Like when I have to split up the cost, like 8,000 and 2,000, like 8,000 goes to ICC and 2,000 goes to labor. And when I bill it, it does not book into right account. So either the unit billing customization that we did needs some tweak, or either the way we set up our accounts internally, it needs some tweak. So I'm not sure at this point, like what the real issue is over there.
So when you're doing billing, when you're doing billing, you have to enter the amount. So if you bill, I think your example was you have a $10,000 fee let's say you bill 50% of that. So you're billing $5,000 and you want 2,000 of that to go to ICC revenue, 3,000 to your fixed fee revenue. When you were testing it, did you break that out? You have to actually tell the system when you bill it that you want 2,000 of the 5,000 to go to ICC revenue.
Okay, now I have to get a training on that because I have no.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, we
Yeah.
could show you where it is quickly if you'd like us to.
That's fine.
Tammy, do you have that? I don't have our test database open. Do you?
Yeah, just give me a second to get into
Okay, I'm sorry.
PA
Yep.
bill review. That was one of the things I didn't have open today.
Okay. Of course not. I know. Nope. Didn't have to be in there.
And let me find a project that has,
Fixed fee on it.
yes.
So, and I think you had the first part of it, right? You put the contract amounts in and broke those up between the, you put in the amount for the ICC, it sounds like. It's just maybe the second part where you have to tell the system when you're billing what portion of that goes to ICC is what we need to show you.
Yeah, so hopefully you can see the screen. So there's this column called ICC, current ICC to apply. And so whatever portion of the ICC that you received this month, so say if it's that $2,000, then I would enter that here. So when it would post my invoice, when I hit save on this one here, and I get my values. So it's going to generate, this invoice is going to generate an invoice for 55,000. So 53 is going to post to fixed fee revenue, and the 2,000 is going to apply to the consultant revenue.
Okay. And this is unit billing also, right? We have to do the same thing in the unit billing?
Yes. So for yours, because you're using the that unit billing that's getting this current amount, you would just need to do this part after that unit is determined.
Okay, so when we go to the on the left hand corner, the whole view under the account or view, we have that drop down menu. We go in, we don't do anything in there. We have to do it in this project center.
You would want to do the ICC in the fixed
In
fee
the
tab.
fixed fee,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll try that this time.
Okay.
See if it works. Thank you.
Great. Nice question. Thank you. And if you have any more issues, you can email us and we can offer some more help as well in regards to that. Any other questions that anybody has?
Just one question on credit card reconciliation. Is there any time an update coming through where we do the reconciliation and the purchase journal gets created once the reconciliation is done? So that way, you know, it gets, you're not making a separate entry or separate, creating a separate purchase journal for credit card, like, you know, that account of vendor invoice, right? When you reconcile a credit card reconciliation, it automatically creates an invoice for the that needs to be paid, so it sits on your account. Is that happening? I'm just not sure.
I don't know of any way that does, but it sounds like a great suggestion for the suggestions portal.
Yeah, I have put it in there already.
Okay.
So, just it needs more traffic to hit like.
So in Unanet, though, you need the purchase journal in order to use the credit card reconciliation process. Right? So
Right, and that's how it starts. I think he's asking though, if he starts one, can there be like, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I feel like you're saying you like a button or something to have it create that invoice, right? For the credit card reconciliation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so because like, you know, I don't know what about others, but we don't use it with that old traditional way to create a bank account for credit card and all that. I just want to go away from there. Just treat it as an AP, and then everything gets booked to the invoice, to the purchase journal. So it's easy that way because of, now we have a lot of transactions. So to go every time and get that thing reconciled and then also do the next step is a little bit like, asking too much. But then, if we have that whole process set up where it just, once you reconcile, it automatically creates a purchase journal and then we just pay it off, right? So it happens in one routine rather than, you're waiting or to create an invoice and then post it, or then you create a disbursement journal instead of creating a purchase journal. So just from a process standpoint, mainly, nothing else.
If you find that suggestion before we're off here, feel free to put it in our chat, and you've got a lot of people here that might vote on that if you put it out there.
Let me look it up. Yeah, let me look it up.
I was going to say that we can, and when I send the recording, I will also send a link to the suggestions area on Unanet so everyone knows where to get to those. And you can either add your suggestions or you can vote on others as well. So I'll make it a point to send that link, the general link to the suggestions. I made note to do that.
Thanks, Tim.
But at least here you have a handful of people that can vote for you, Chintan. So that's good. Any other questions? And we just want to give thanks to Tammy for doing that nice presentation. Hopefully it was beneficial to everybody. It's a lot to cover in kind of a few minutes, but at least it hopefully gets you thinking on the right path and the right line of thinking. If you need any more assistance with year-end process, you can email us or let us know and we can assist further. And like I said in the beginning, if there's any topics or subjects you'd like discussed, please email me and we can add those to the list. We'd like to make sure that these sessions are beneficial. So if there's something specific you'd like to learn or gain as far as Unanet goes, please let us know and we'll be sure to include it and touch on it. In 2 weeks from now, I believe our focus is going to be labor distribution will be the topic we're going to talk about, and we'll get into details about that as well. So if you have questions along that, you can kind of prepare your questions. And again, any other things you come up against, we're happy to answer during the session as well. And we see the links there in the chat for the suggestions from Chintan. So if it's something you need as well, you can vote on his suggestions as well. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Tammy, for your presentation. Really well done. We appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for your questions. And we will give you a few minutes back to your day, unless there's any other questions.